There clearly needs to be a public inquiry into the CMS. I've spoken to much more learned persons than myself, such as individuals from Split the Difference and numerous other fairer society movements who consider the most comprehensive, strategic, evidence-based approach to tackling this social issue. We as men, fathers and women, parents and content creators need to coalesce, unite under one banner to litigate against the immoral, socially destructive rogue agency. So what would a public inquiry do? The inquiry will explore the WDP and might improve the CMS to better support children in poverty and examine the barriers parents face when trying to access CMS support, as well as how the system interacts with wider social security, including universal credit. Reforms in 2012 were aimed at encouraging families where one of the parents does not live with the child to create their own arrangements for payment of support and reduce the use of government services. While family-based arrangements have increased in use of the CMS has fallen, the estimated proportion of separated families without any arrangements in place has risen from 25% in 2011-2012 to 44% from 2019 to 2020. In March, the National Audit Office published a report on child maintenance calling on the DWP to do more to ensure families could easily use the CMS. In 2019, the Social Security Advisory Committee recommended that the government publish a strategy for separated parents and their children in respect to the social security system. The chair's comments, RT Ron Stephen Kills, MP, chair of the Working Pensions Committee, said, "The dramatic rise over the last decade in the number of separated parents with no child maintenance arrangements in place means that young people from such families are at risk of poverty. The inquiry will look at how to remove barriers to establish child maintenance arrangements and examine how the CMS and wider social security systems can work better together to ensure children from separated families have proper support growing up." The inquiry follows on from the committee's previous Children in Poverty work on measurements and targets and the experience of families with no recourse to public funds. The committee is inviting submissions on the following questions. How quickly does the CMS respond to queries and requests from parents? Is there any data on this at all that can be accessed? How can the CMS ensure self-employment parents are contributing fairly to their child raising costs? What role does the CMS have in dispute resolution for families? How does the CMS interact with the wider social security system, including universal credit? And how does the DWP improve the CMS to better support children living in poverty? More widely, how can the WDP support children with separated parents? Is the child maintenance service operating better than the previous child support agency? Are children better supported now than they were then? Are there any international examples of best practice on supporting children in separated families that the department should learn from? Scratch our heads here. But you and I know there needs to be far more done in terms of tackling the CMS and its unethical practices and its immoral ways of collecting money. However, you and I know that there needs to be much more than an inquiry to prevent the immense suffering that many non-resident parents face, that this needs to be seen as a public health concern and demonstrably hurting communities and families across England, and as part of a global move to impact disparity between men and women in every level of global community. Split the Difference has written an open letter to the government and 193 UN member states and 6 committees, which you can read for yourself, but I'll cover some of it here. We write to your esteemed office on behalf of Split the Difference, a registered charity in Wales. We work to promote equality in services for men and boys in 13 specific areas, ranging from health, education to housing, and access to all social and legal services. A key focus area for our non-for-profit organisation for the year 2023 aligns with the Sustainable Development Goal Target 3.0 2024, covering the subject of suicide under the Non-Communicable Disease and Mental Health. As per World Health Organization, the WHO, global data from the year 2016, the global average of crude suicide rates per 100,000 of the population is 7.7 for females and much higher of 13.5 for males. In fact, regional averages also show a similar trend of higher rates in men than in females, presenting a striking contrast of 24.7, the highest figure for men, and at 6.6 for females across the European region. Similar higher trends of male suicide rates are visible from the World Health Statistic Data Visualization dashboard available at the WHO website. There exists a wide-ranging mental health awareness and diagnosis facilitates to support women and girls, legislation to safeguard interests of women and girls, and social and legal systems designed to support the fairer sex, but not much exists for men and boys across continents. The recent developments in the Domestic Abuse Act 2021 in the UK and of the domestic abuse legislation across all of the European countries have its primary focus on ensuring the safety of female victims, through strengthening the law without considering the equal need to support the male victims of abuse in case of female perpetrators. The realization of gender equality and reduced inequalities, the two of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, it is impossible if we keep excluding men and boys from the spectrum, focusing on women and girls alone. The UK and other countries are following the same guidance from this legally binding instrument to bring a drastic change to the domestic abuse and legislation, criminal law and family law affecting divorce, child custody law, parental alienation, child safety legislation, the key focus of all areas being on women alone. The Istanbul Convention is one of the most powerful legally binding instruments of our times, affecting all aspects of law and policy reforms. Gender equality could not be reached without ensuring the ambiguity in language that treats all women and men equally. The very words in the Violence Against Women and Girls strategy limits the scope of strategy designed to curb and eliminate a form of violence that could be affecting anyone, irrespective of their gender. You can see this letter for yourself, which sets out a clear strategy to support men and boys in 13 key areas. We all should get behind this, and I suggest that you sign up. And if everybody shared this video and signed up and donated whatever you could afford, it will be possible to take legal action against the government. If this issue means anything to you, and I know it does, this is what you can do. You can sign this petition. At the time of me signing it, there were 3,039 signatures, but we need 10,000 for the government to start looking at it. I know this does. Sign this petition, share this video, sign up to Split the Difference, and donate whatever you can. I'll be doing the same. And now for my shout-outs, which I'll be doing on a regular basis from now on. Check out Chats for Drinks. His content is informative and will add to our collective learning as we come together to bring the CMS, Kafkas and family court nonsense to answer. Listen, we are all the CMS guy. That guy next to you at work is the CMS guy. That lady you work with is the CMS guy. We are all that CMS guy. We're in it together.